Hi, it's your $2 Tuesday movie critic here, and today we're going to be reviewing A Walk Among the Tombstones, which stars Liam Neeson. Now, this movie, I just want to get out of the way first, is nothing like Taken. You know, he did the the original Taken and Taken 2. So there are a lot of differences between the movies. For one, well, all three of them I can't say are dark movies. I think Taken was a lot more dark than Taken 2, but A Walk Among the Tombstones is the perfect name because this movie is very, very dark. It kind of like borders on the line between dark and horror. It was so dark, but this wasn't about ghosts that go bump in the night or exorcist type things. No, these were humans being horrific. I can just say that. So it was a very dark movie. It was very, very dark. It was darker than Taken. So if you saw Taken and you thought that was dark, then this is twice that, if not more. In this movie, he doesn't have a family. He is an ex-cop, and he is nothing like the character that he plays in Taken. Liam Neeson, I mean. Like most cops do, they go by their last name. So he goes by his last name, Scudder, in the movie. He's a recovering alcoholic as well, and in A Walk Among the Tombstones. And, of course, in the movie Taken, both Takens, he was this very precise, very analytic type fellow that was kept calm and cool under all situations. He was very domineering. He also looked like he knew some form of martial arts. He was a great fighter. None of this is true. In A Walk Among the Tombstones, he is pretty torn and broken as his life as a cop and also as a recovering alcoholic. He doesn't like to really, if he does like to fight, it doesn't show. He really rather try and talk his way out of a situation if he can, and that's the way he normally does things in the movie. Now, full disclosure here, I did not read the novel that this movie is based on by Lawrence Block, and the novel was, of course, of the same name, A Walk Among the Tombstones. I know, like, when I do read a book and I see a movie, I want to see that book come to life. I don't want to see some version of what they think the book should be. I want to see so, you know, I'd be curious to see what how people that actually read the book, what they think of the movie. And I think I'll look at that later. But for the most part, that's what the novel is based on. This guy, Scudder, who was an ex-cop that left the force because of a very unfortunate accident. And he points out, and I won't tell you that because I feel like I'd be giving it too much away, but he does talk about that part in the movie. I mean, he talks about that situation that happened like more than once in the movie. It's almost to the point where by the time he talks about it the last time, you have it memorized in your head what he did. And it's not because it's redundant. Each time he does it, there's a reason for him saying it. So, and it doesn't become monotonous or anything like that. It's just he when he wants to prove something, when he feels that it's necessary, he tells the story. And you'll see what I mean when you see the movie. So, because the movie is so dark, I want to warn people that are going to see an action movie, because that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. When I saw the previews for it, I honestly did think that it was going to be Taken 3, because when you look at the previews, with the exception of him not getting justice or trying to find his daughter or someone, it seemed like it was still an action movie, you know, and things like that. But there's not really any action in it. At one point, there's a gunfight, but and the gunfight isn't even that long, and it's, you know, it's very realistic. Let's just say that. It's not like the gunfights you see in action movie where a lot of stuff gets blown up, people are running, trying to dodge the bullets. No, no, it's not that kind of gunfight at all. It's very realistic. So even that is different. And the movie itself, it stays in that darkness. There is a bright spot in the movie, and that is because of the little boy, he's a teenager, the teenage boy that Scudder befriends in the movie, and his name is TJ, and TJ is played by Brian Bradley. In this movie, he is a teenage runaway, and he lives on the streets, and he has his own problems too, like Scudder. Not the same problems, of course, but he has his own problems. And because of they're both like troubled people, they find a kinship in that. And they form a friendship, but it's not instant. It's not instant at all. So, and it's understandable because this kid has lived on the streets most of his life, so he's become very wary of adults trying to help him. And so there's the bright spot. Other than that, yeah, the movie is very dark. There's no romance in this movie at all. When Scudder goes to speak to this drug trafficker about, the situation, he doesn't know who he is. He knows him as, he knows his brother. And his brother is the one that actually tries to talk him into going to see Scudder. Or rather, Scudder into seeing his brother. So it becomes a whole thing, and it doesn't come out the way you would think it does, based on what the previews show. I would not take anyone to see this movie that's under the age of 21. I would not take a teenager at all, on my teen anyway. So I would suggest it, for adults only. Yeah, it's rated R for a very big reason. Yeah, there are quite a few times that people use cursing, and I think there's a brief point where there's some nudity, but all of that pales in comparison to the darkness that is brought forth on the screen from the things that are done. So just keep that in mind. And when you go see this movie, it's not an action movie. It is a mystery drama. And if you've ever watched the old black and white movie, Sam Spade, starring Humphrey Bogart, but they're darker, much, much darker. So, but they are definitely a mystery. It is a mystery what's going on, and the further you get and more that Scudder learns about what's going on, the darker things get. So also keep that in mind. It doesn't lighten up at all. Even when you get to the ending of the movie, it's still very realistic, but very dark as well. And then it just has a calm at the end to a point where there's still darkness, but it's kind of like Scudder separates himself from the darkness. He gets the opportunity to separate from himself from the darkness, and he does. And that's all I'm going to tell you that, because I don't want to take anything away from the movie. Because it's a mystery, you do want to see it to the end, and you want to know what happens or why it's happening. There is a lot of violence, sadistic type violence, sexual violence, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of violence, but it's not graphic. You hear more than you see, but what you hear is so well done, I guess I can say that you can actually picture it in your head, and that's not necessarily a good thing, just so you know. My final recommendation is that if you like mysteries, you like the movie. If you like Taken, and you saw the darkness there, then you'll probably be okay watching this one, because it's darker than Taken, but again, you don't really see a lot of the graphic violence, but it's there. Liam Neeson is great. It's just he is a very distant departure from the character he played in Taken, the father that he played in Taken. He's not even a father figure, in this. He's a very upstanding guy, but he's a broken guy as well. And I don't think in this movie he's necessarily looking for redemption, but he knows that he can't go back to being a cop, so he does the closest thing, which is being this detective. Or unofficial detective, as he calls himself, because he doesn't have a license. So, that's my recommendation for the movie. I don't know if I'm actually going to go and buy it because, like I said, it was so dark. I can only watch dark movies in segments. And that'll probably be cool because I can pause it when I need to pause it and go for a minute and then come back. Or fast forward over the parts that it was hard for me to see or listen to. The old school movies that I compared A Walk Among the Tombstones to are two movies that also have official characters in them. Like Scudder was an ex-cop. We have the general's daughter, and in this, John Travolta plays the main character in the movie. And this movie came out, General's Daughter came out in 1999. And this is also based on a novel. I didn't know that either until I read some more on it. This is based on a novel, and it was written by Nelson DeMille. Okay, so The General's Daughter is also a very dark movie. It's not as dark as A Walk Among the Tombstones, but it is dark. And it's also a mystery type movie where in the beginning you see that the general's daughter has been killed, but nobody knows who killed her or why. And before even you see that part, you see John Travolta's character, the officer. He meets her when she's still alive. He has car trouble. She helps him out. And, they open up a little conversation. He gives her a little thank you later on. And, that's the last time he sees her alive. And then, of course, the next time he sees her, he's been giving her case to find out who killed her. This is, like I said, a very dark movie. And it's one of those movies that you think, okay, it starts off stranger enough in the way that she was killed. But as he keeps going forward, finding out more information, just like with Scudder, the darker the movie gets, because he finds out even more information that just, reveals a very dark side to this woman. But what he also finds out about her, not just the darkness, but he finds out what type of a woman that she was. She's a very strong woman, and she was also a woman that cared and looked out for other women. She was also a military officer, too, in this movie. And the movie itself was definitely well done. This is one of my favorite movies, but because it is dark, it's one of those that I don't watch that often either. But it's not as dark, like I said, as A Walk Among the Tombstones, but it has its very dark moments. And it also deals with sexual violence against women, just the same thing as A Walk Among the Tombstones. And it's a mystery. One of the reasons that I love this movie so much is because it deals with the consequences of the actions that were taken not only by this strong female officer, but by the people that, affected her, both negatively and positively. So it was just one of those really great movies. Alright, and so that is one of the old school movies. And then the next one is Mystic River. Now, Mystic River itself, even the cover, and now this one's in DVD. I do have some movies in DVD. Now, this one came out in 2003. So it was not as old school as the other one, but it was there. And it starred Sean Penn, Tim Robbins, Kevin Bacon, Lawrence Fishburne, Marcia Gay Harden, and Laura Linney. Now, these were all very important people in this movie. And this is another movie where it's about sexual violence because the little boy is raped repeatedly. And finally, fortunately enough for him, he gets away and he was able to come back home. But his life, is forever changed. And then move on years later, and when they're all adults, and the Jimmy's daughter, his oldest, ends up missing. And then later on they find out that she's dead, and therein lies the mystery where Sean has to go, who's now the cop. Sean, who's played by Kevin Bacon, has to go and find out who killed Jimmy, who's played by Sean Penn, who's killed his daughter. And also, I still don't understand necessarily why Jimmy thinks that it's Dave, who's played by Tim Robbins, you know, because it's like he was pretty much a recluse. He stayed to himself. The only time he really had a bright moment was when he was talking to his son and you know, taking his son places and doing things with his son. That was like the bright moment in his life. So like for Scudder, the same thing was true for Dave. You know, it was the kids, the youth, that kind of like made them feel human again. The movie, again, is very dark, just like A Walk Among the Tombstones. And, you know, they don't thankfully show the violence that's done to Dave, but they insinuate at it when the guy has him down in this basement type area, and when he opens the door and the kid says, please no more. That still gives me the creeps. As the movie goes forward, and as Sean, played by Kevin Bacon, finds out more about what's going on, things do get darker, because you find out more about Jimmy and the things that he's done, and you have more questions for Dave, because he had done something, not necessarily in his past, but he had done something that night that Jimmy doesn't know about, but that Sean does know about, that makes him more suspicious of Dave. But because, you know, Dave is not being honest about what happened until it's too late, things get even darker and even worse for him. And that's one of the movies, I found this movie so incredibly sad, because with the exception of being with his son, in this movie, Dave really doesn't have a good life. He doesn't have, you know, the friends that, even after they haven't been together in years, they still consider each other, you know. Jimmy trusts Sean to find out who killed his daughter. And at a certain point, yeah, he doesn't suspect Dave, and he accepts Dave's words of, you know, condolence and stuff like that. But it takes like almost a turn of a pen, and Jimmy suspecting Dave. And again, I don't remember, and I would have to go back and look at the movie again, why Jimmy suspected Dave so easily, as to why he would, you know, kill his daughter. That movie bothered me, because I always felt very empathetic to Dave, whereas it seemed like no one else did. I think his wife did later on, and all his son really felt for him was love. I think his son loved him and cared about him, but he didn't. I'm sure Dave never told his son what happened to him, and so because he never knew, he only saw him as his dad, this authoritative figure that took care of him and talked to him and things like that. So yeah, that movie was very, very dark. And again, where Sean the cop, like Scudder, is trying to find out the information. He, you know, unlike Scudder, who is a detective unofficially, so he can do more. Sean is limited to what he can do and what he can say. All three movies are great. Just like they're dark, they're all mystery movies. And that was the part that I really liked about them, because I love mystery movies almost as much as I like reading mystery novels. But I don't think oh, and of course Mystic River is also, you know, adapted from a novel, and it was written by Dennis Lehane. The movie is great. The actors have such great chemistry with each other and do such a great job. You believe that they're these guys that, you know, grew up with each other, but actually separated and you know, from each other as time goes on. And a lot of that had to do with what happened to Dave as a boy. So those are my three movies for this review. I hope that you liked it, and I hope you see the comparisons that I made and the connections that I made between the three. If you think there are if you think there's another movie that compares better with A Walk Among the Tombstones, let me know down at the bottom of the screen. And have a great day. I'll see you next time.